Hello and welcome to Tuesday Talk. My name is Akhil Khan. I'm the director of Project Open. Project Open is a substance use disorder prevention, treatment, and recovery grant. It's a $1 million grant offered by HRSA. We operate in Lee, Ogle, and Whiteside counties in Northwest Illinois. And today we're very excited to have Ms. Stephanie Englund on the phone today to talk to us about Recovery Dharma. Hey, Stephanie, how are you?
Hi, Akhil. Good, thank you.
Before we get into the topic of Recovery Dharma, would you mind just giving a little bit of background about yourself and maybe why recovery is important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for inviting me here to talk about Recovery Dharma. So I am 13, almost 14 years sober. My first stint at sobriety, thank you. My first stint at sobriety was 12 years, and I wasn't really quite sure I was in recovery at that point. I had sat my first Vipassana meditation course when I was 19. And from there, I just led a life of Buddhist ethical principles until I had sort of a downfall at 32 and I started using it again. And so, this right now, about 34 is when I entered recovery, having acknowledged, I was suffering from addiction and alcohol use disorder. So, but it was when I was 19 is when I kind of found this path of following, the Dharma practices.
Well, first thing, congratulations on your recovery and for the audience that doesn't know, I actually know Stephanie quite well. We've worked together for a number of years on various projects to support people in recovery, and you're a leader in this space, and we're really excited because Recovery Dharma is kind of a newer topic that's come to our area. It's been around for a little bit, but if you don't mind telling our audience, well, what exactly is Recovery Dharma? Or as I said earlier, what the heck is Recovery Dharma?
It's the most fascinating thing. It is a program, a recovery program. It's not specific for one drug over another. It really is taking Buddhist ethical principles and providing a space and a platform for individuals to follow. And it is a practice. People meet together like you would in a normal 12-step AA or NA meeting. And we gather and follow a program. And then we practice meditation. So it's personal insight.
Buddhist principles. And so do you need to be Buddhist to join in this? Does it follow a denomination, or is it kind of more secular?
It doesn't follow a denomination, actually. It follows no teacher. So it does use the Buddhist ethical practices. And I do have to just disclaim that I am a Buddhist. And I was reading, the Dalai Lama likes to describe Buddhism as a philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily religion. So there's two parts of Buddhism. One is a philosophy. So with Recovery Dharma, I really like to emphasize that it is the philosophy of Buddhism. Buddha was not a god. He was a man that walked this earth, that through his realization and awareness that there was suffering people all around them, process addiction, behavioral addiction, and really kind of put the work within ourselves and dig deep and find that peace and calm.
I like that you brought up suffering over there. I have very precursory research done on kind of the Buddhist principles and suffering. And what was really cool to me is to realize that everybody is suffering. Every human we come across is suffering, and to identify that suffering, to be empathetic for that suffering, and then being able to work with that present. And I think the only time that suffering doesn't exist, and correct me if I'm wrong over here, is in the present moment. If you are totally present in the present moment, suffering, there's an inability to suffer. Is that accurate for the Buddhist principles?
Absolutely. And so I had practiced Vipassana since I was 19. So 26 years old, I practiced this Vipassana meditation, which comes from one of the original teachings the Buddha gave. And it's really just awareness of your breath, the sensation, and the inside happenings with your mind and your body. And so by being in the present moment is the only time you can have that awareness. And when we're in past and future, we have the opportunity to have attachment, craving,
Yeah.
or aversion towards something. So we either want it or we don't want it. And because we can want it or don't want it, that creates the suffering, because then we're not at ease and happy and content.
That makes a lot of sense. My personal mentor, my teacher, Dr. Pratap Nag, he's talked about suffering a lot in the ego mind, right? That our ego mind cannot exist in the present moment. The ego mind has to be attached to something in the past, so something that happened that you dwell upon that ultimately leads to suffering. Because suffering, I thought suffering was only sadness or something that bad, but even happiness is suffering, right? Because you're deriving something not in the present moment to elicit that feeling. And then he talks about that the ego mind sometimes projects into the future, starts to think of things that could happen in the future, this or that, X, Y, or Z, what if, and that inherently leads to suffering. So he always reminds me, hey, just take a moment, take a deep breath, focus on the breath, air coming in and out of the lungs. And in that moment, you do truly let go of everything. And there is no suffering in that moment. So I thought that was, when I started to read about Recovery Dharma a little bit before this, it was kind of brought back some of those lessons he taught me.
What a wonderful mentor you have.
Yeah, I'm very, very lucky.
Dr. Nag is wonderful.
Before we get into some more of the questionings, I noticed in your name over there, we have in parentheses Garma. Can you talk to us a little bit about what is Garma?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because I followed this Vipassana meditation. I was not a Buddhist my whole life, but I followed this practice, this ethical philosophy of Buddhism and practice. And then recently, I kind of stumbled upon a Tibetan teacher that took me on as her student, and part of her practice, I initiated myself. And she gave me a Dharma name of Garma. And that just kind of goes with my dance. Garma, it's an acknowledgement that I'm working to better myself. And so kind of my past Stephanie still exists, but I'm still working to better and to remind myself that the path I'm walking, this Buddhist ethical principle path, is to not only help myself, but to help other people. And so it's just a reminder to live the principles of Dharma.
Okay, I like that. Well, what do I got to do to get a cool name like that?
Just go meditate. Go with Dr. Nag. Go with Dr. Nag and meditate.
Yeah, meditation is definitely an active practice that I, sometimes can with how busy our lives are, it's hard to do, but it's so necessary to help keep centered and be aware. So, if you don't mind me asking, when did Recovery Dharma start? When did this whole movement start?
So I believe it started as Refuge Recovery sometime 2013, 2014, and then sort of a branch of it went off to become Recovery Dharma. And it was brought to my attention just recently, actually. One of my sort of colleagues and friends, Gerald Lott from Sauk Valley Voices of Recovery, he went and visited a treatment facility outside of Chicago called Above and Beyond. And he was so excited to tell me, he calls me the little Buddhist. He was so excited to tell me that they have this program called Recovery Dharma. And so I went ahead and started looking into it. And I just felt like I was really just so blown away and just so happy that there was something that was about Buddhist practices and principles and put towards recovery. And I said, oh my God, this is what I've been living my life like this. Like, this is how I got out of addiction, but I didn't even know it, So that's so we really have to thank Above and Beyond for allowing us to come and visit them and learn about this. And so I did some research, and it was a national organization. And we just decided, let's start a group here. We have enough experience. And we set a space at our facility at 1901 First Avenue in Sterling. We created a whole room. We took all the furniture out. We painted it. And it's our Recovery Dharma room now.
Thanks for that, Steph. In my research, I read this tagline that it said, the belief of Recovery Dharma, one of the many beliefs, is that recovery means empowerment. Can you talk a little bit about what that means in that context?
So it's a self-exploration. There is, and we all know this, recovery is possible. You can go to treatment, you can go to meetings, but ultimately, even if you're working with a sponsor, ultimately, day in and day out, you live with yourself from moment to moment. And so you have to do the work yourself. And therefore, that is the empowerment. And another layer of that empowerment is that you realize through the Four Noble Truths that there is suffering, there's a cause of suffering, there is a way out of suffering. And here's the way out of suffering. 4 easy steps. Definitely, it's not easy to do that in your daily life, but that's the empowerment to know, like, I don't have to rely on somebody to make me happy. I can do this myself. I can look within, and I have the support system around me. So that's
So
the empowerment there.
no, that makes a lot of sense, and that was very well put. And just for the group, I'm going to read the Four Noble Truths over here. That the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the end of suffering, and the truth of the path that leads to the end of suffering. So is recovery dharma essentially the last two things? Is that it's the path to the end of suffering, and that, or am I maybe connecting two things that shouldn't be connected?
That second part, but you said it first. So it is really, it incorporates all of that. So Recovery Dharma starts with the Four Noble Truths, and then it also incorporates the Eightfold Noble Path. And so the Four Noble Truths is really acknowledging that there's suffering and how to come out of suffering. And then part of that is the Eightfold Noble Path, which is really how to live ethically, by, making right decisions, choosing, way that you treat one another and yourself, speaking respectfully, and making right choices. And in recovery, that's a lot of what we're trying to do, is really change our choices and change our behavior patterns,
Mm-hmm.
and change our decision making. So it's a combination of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path.
And for our audience's benefits, I'll read the Eightfold Path. It is right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And Steph, I just wanted to open it up to you. Are there any one of those eightfold path that you wanted to just talk about as it relates specifically to recovery, or?
So let's start with right understanding, if even if we had time only for that. So with right understanding, like, what does that even mean? Let's go back to understanding, like, I am happy. I can make myself happy. Akil, you can't make me happy. And so if I believe that my happiness relies in you,
Mhm.
that is not right understanding. And that's going to perpetuate my suffering. If I say everything Akil does is going to make me happy or unhappy. And so right understanding is really knowing that we have within ourselves the ability to respond and react
Mhm.
to things that are happening in the world that we like and that we dislike. And so right understanding is knowing that just through liking something or disliking something, that can cause us to be attached, to crave, to have that desire. You can have right desire, which is I have the desire to want to help people. That's right desire. Or I have the desire to want to be sober and to live a good life for myself and my family. And so it's not a bad type of craving, because those are good cravings, right? We're craving health and we're craving happiness. But when the happiness doesn't come, this is the problem. If it makes us suffer, oh, that happiness didn't come, and so now I'm unhappy. So we want to find this balance of equanimity, where we're okay when things aren't okay, because we know that we just have to continue to work, and that suffering is there, and it's not going to last forever. This too shall pass is a very famous quote that we've all heard in our lives, is that we have to understand with right understanding that this is a momentary thing, and with awareness and with equanimity, that moment will pass.
I think the only thing that is constant in this world is change. So that makes sense, right? Nothing is permanent. Nothing will last forever, and this too shall pass. Are there any one of the other eightfold path that you wanted to kind of tie into what it means for recovery?
Yeah, so the mindfulness part. So the mindfulness, we really, half of our meeting goes through the practice, and we share some readings, and the other half we spend on actually meditating. And so the mindfulness is really important, to be aware um, of what is happening within the nature of our thoughts and within the nature of our body. And the reason why it's so relevant for recovery, let's say from addiction, is because there are things that are happening, emotions and feelings and sensations, that can trigger a craving. And so with the mindfulness meditation, if we can find a center, and have an awareness of what is happening, we can catch those cravings before they overpower us and it turns into a using or a high risk situation.
Excellent. Mindfulness is something that I've tried to start practicing more lately, and it definitely has helped me be more present and just more aware of how I react to something. If someone does something to me and I kind of initially might get defensive, I take a moment to think of their intention. What did they mean by it? Did they mean to hurt me? Where's their heart? And that's really helped me better handle situations in life. And I think that might relate to people just on their path to recovery. And so my question to you is, do you actually have to be in active recovery to start on this, or could this actually be one of the first steps towards recovery? Can you be an active user and participate in Recovery Dharma?
Absolutely. There's no rule that you have to be clean for a certain amount of time. Even at NA or AA meetings, it's always about just come. Like the newcomer is there, and please come and learn. And honestly, this is a program that is complementary to somebody who is going to a traditional 12-step meeting. Many of our members are part of a traditional AA or NA, and they're finding real benefit because we're not in there focusing on one chemical or one addiction. We actually don't even get into that. We just follow the process. And then we practice our meditation. So it really is a recovery overall. So it's very inclusive to anybody on the path of recovery.
And so that's really good to know. And I think for our audience out there, this could be, if someone might be struggling to, get into recovery, this might be a way to start through these practices of the mindfulness and the concentration on the path. I wanted to just highlight something earlier that you mentioned, is this is not just from substance use disorder, but these could be from codependency, from gambling, I know a lot of us are addicted to technology. This has a broad spectrum of recovery pathways, right? There's no one right path to recovery. There's multiple paths. We have to acknowledge all those paths and all the things that we might need to recover from. So I just wanted to highlight what you said earlier, just so that our audience is aware of that.
Yeah, and when you think back on what we talked about with the Four Noble Truths, the causes of suffering is attachment, clinging to things. Mm-hmm. Anything that we're clinging to that causes us unhappiness or unease. If we're having difficulty with that, then you're going to want to incorporate some mindfulness into your life, because the mindfulness is what helps you, as you said earlier, stay in the present moment, and it reduces that clinging and that wanting and that attachment to things that make us happy or make us unhappy.
Well, I think one of the biggest things that kind of rocked my world when I thought to attachment is, first off, attachment does lead to suffering. They're connected, but I used to get attached to outcomes, right? I used to go into meetings at my job and be like, I really hope we come to this arrival. I really hope we come to this conclusion, and we choose this project to work on. And by having that attachment to the outcome, I suffered. I put myself through so much suffering, because when things didn't go my way, I was upset about that. But now I'm just attached to the process, or I'm more mindful and aware of the process, and whatever outcome happens. And because I wasn't attached to that or had any, try to steer anyone in a certain direction, that has really helped me just be more productive in my work life and in my personal life, is not being attached to the outcome.
Yeah, it's so true. So that reminds me of Levi. So my son is in football, 5th grade football, and all you parents out there whose kids are winning, this is great. So the first football game he lost, and I was like checking in with him because he's never played sports before. And some of the other kids were really upset, super attached to wanting to win, very unhappy at losing. And we're driving home. I'm like, so how'd that game go? I didn't say, hey, great, you won. I'm like, so how do you think that game went? He's like, yeah, that game went great. And I'm like secretly happy inside. I'm like, oh my God, he's not attached to losing and he's not super upset about it. Yeah. And so like, I don't want to advertise like, oh, I don't care if we win or lose, because I think competition is really good. But the mental state that he was at, I was pretty happy about. Like, yeah, he wasn't attached. He gave it his all, but he wasn't super like sad that he didn't win. He was just like, yeah, it was a good game.
That's awesome. That is, I think, a perfect example of being unattached to the outcome and just being present through the process and enjoying the process and finding the fruit in that. You kind of touched a little bit about what a typical meeting is like. It starts with some readings, and if you don't mind, tell me a little bit more about the readings, and it goes into meditation. Is that generally the structure for a meeting, or how does a meeting look like for someone?
Yeah, so that is the structure. So, anybody who's ever been to, 12-step anonymous meeting, there are readings in the beginning, and there's sort of a format. Recovery Dharma has a format that they follow, and we go over the practice and what it is, and the practice the short form or the long form. We discuss a reading. And so the readings that we're doing can either be through, there's an author, which I really just love his book. His name is Kevin Griffin. He wrote the Buddhism and the 12-Step Workbook. It's right here. It's available on Amazon. I just have fallen in love with this book because he was like me, like a meditator for a long time, and then fell into really looking at how Buddhist practices work with his recovery. And then, of course, we follow the Recovery Dharma book, which I believe is like $6 or $7 on Amazon. And so we do go through a daily reading or meeting reading. And then we do a group share, an introduction. Hi, my name is Stephanie. And we don't have to say like, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an addict. We don't identify with anything like that. It's just like, hi, my name is Stephanie. I'm a newcomer, I'm not a newcomer. And then we go into practice. Everybody that comes is really like focused on practicing. And that's what makes it wonderful. And so we go through guided practice. And I sort of have a big book, a binder of all different types of guided meditation practices. And since I when I'm in there, we all have opportunities to chair the meeting, and we just go through guided meditation, and we spend about a good 20 minutes doing that. And then we end the meeting in a dedication of merit.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean by dedication of merit?
Yeah, so it's like you just are sort of being grateful for being in recovery. You're being grateful for following the practice, and may all beings be happy, kind of thing. So, so
the
in
right
my
livelihood of the Eight Noble Truth, right?
right.
That's really cool. Is there a cost to participate in meetings?
Oh, absolutely not. No. The support meetings are free everywhere you go. I think sometimes people pass around the basket or an envelope if they want to throw in $1 here and there. We haven't really started that. We're kind of a new meeting. But there's no cost to attend at all. If people want to buy the Recovery Dharma book, they can purchase that on their own on Amazon or wherever they want to go. Hopefully Books on First, I really want them to carry more recovery books. And that would be such a great book for them to carry is Recovery Dharma book or other types of recovery books for the community to go in and purchase. So.
And are there any online options? I mean, in our day and age with COVID, it's always you and I right now virtual. So is there online Recovery Dharma meetings?
Yeah, people can log into international Recovery Dharma meetings in the United States, internationally in Europe. This is a national program, and you can just go onto recoverydharma.org and look at the meeting list and see there's a lot of Zoom meetings. There's a lot of virtual platform meetings. Our meetings are in person Monday and Fridays at 1.
And that's Monday and Fridays at 1901 First Avenue in Sterling, Illinois?
Correct.
That's at the LSSI building, and now Sauk Valley Voices of Recovery also uses a portion of the building. And you've sent me some pictures of that Dharma room and very nice wall color, floor cushions. It's very peaceful and very tranquil. I might just come just to practice meditation and be more mindful. Steph, is there anything else you wanted to add on the topic of Recovery Dharma, or anything you want to speak to the audience who might be in recovery or might be totally unaware of recovery?
Yeah, I just would say, don't be, taken off the fact that it's following the Buddhist principles, the ethical system, because that really is a philosophy. Come and try it out. And if you have always, thought in the back of your mind, like, I really want to learn how to meditate, then definitely want to come and visit us, because that's kind of what our main focus is. People have been experiencing just such calm and peace, and you will find a very calm space to come and practice meditation. So newcomers welcome. You do not have to have any meditation experience necessary whatsoever.
Stephanie, thank you very much for your time today. I know it's valuable. I want to thank you again for being a champion of the recovery community, and especially now pioneering this these Recovery Dharma meetings. I definitely will find myself there sometime soon. How I feel after just meditating alone, when I do manage to, find time and prioritize meditation, just so relaxed and calm, and it allows me to focus and be more productive in my work. So I just see a benefit in the guided meditation alone. I want to thank everyone for joining us for today's Tuesday talk. If you have any more questions about Recovery Dharma, visit the websites we threw up there earlier, recoverydharma.org. There's recoverydharmachicago.org. Reach out to the Project Open website, and we'll help you get in touch with Stephanie. And again, every Monday and Friday, 1 p.m. at 1901 First Avenue in Sterling, Illinois. Pop in and check it what it's about. Thanks, Stephanie.
All right. Thank you, Akil. Have a good
Hey,
day.
guys. Bye.